inside. Benny, this is what we go for every start of
Thanks.
each and every race night as the late models. 10 laps on the board. We are going racing. You'll have to be good to defeat that Tasmania 6 as he is out and running. Good start from Brad Smith. I know you're keen to watch him go. And yes, he's been nigh unstoppable. Cameron Pearson in that 10 car. You can just see the attitude as Brad Smith is not comfortable at all. Steve Horn goes motoring through to the lead. Cameron Pearson from Smith. Peter Nicola. Now Smith is back to fourth, just like that. As Cameron goes straight to the lead. He is a star, this kid, isn't he? From downtown Healesville, just on the other side of Melbourne. And Benny, he's putting it to him here in heat race number 1.
He certainly is, Gav, and he's looking really stout out in front from Vaughan in the South Australia, 67. Nicola sits just dropping back now in third. Massive gap in the field back to Cornfoot. Further back we go to the Tasmania 6 of Smith, who's dropped away sharply here mid-race. Out in front, Pearson. Vaughan sticking with him now, though. He's just holding sway, although as we say that, he starts to lose a bit of pace from Pearson, who's just circulating beautifully out in front in the Victoria 10 car. Vaughan just gets up the inside off turn 2, just to make him a little bit nervous. Going to come up on some lap traffic, which might make it interesting with 3 laps remaining.
Gee, Brendan Hucker looks racy as well in the 23, goes by James Cornfoot in the 31. Shane Belt next in line. And Smith, who has to have trouble in that 6. Zach Tyson a little further back, but Cam Pearson with 2 to run. Steve Vaughan, Peter Nicola. Hasn't been easy. He got to the lead and look at the attitude.
Good battle this one for first and second.
White flag is out, there's 1 to run. Cam Pearson leaves that low groove open as Vaughan pokes the nose and you can see him slam the door shut. They come back to the main straight to greet the checkers. Heat 1 is in the books. Oh, Zach Tyson looks like he's knocked the front end out of the X7. Steve Vaughan, who was runner-up as they crossed the line, also involved. He's spun and now facing the opposite direction. Wow. Cam Pearson will take the win in the 10 car, and not easy in the end, I might add. Had enormous pressure from the 67 car of Steve Horn, who actually had a peak as they exited turn number 2.
Green flag up for heat race number 2. Brendan Hucker to lead us away here, 10 laps on the road motorcycle and mowers lap counter. Green flag about to drop as they come off turn 4 rather. Brendan Hucker straight to the early lead. We've got one up around the outside. It's Shane Belt. He's trying Pearson. Have a look at Pearson. Splits the difference. Goes on by. He works his way to second really quick. And Pearson now. He'll be out and trying to chase down the race leader, the Victoria 23 of Brendan Hucker. We then go back further in the field to Cornfoot, who's worked his way through to third. So Cornfoot. He's trying to chase out after the 2 leaders. Pearson pouring on the pressure in the Victoria 10. He's pouring on the pressure on Brendan Hucker as they go down through turn 2. A gap opening up in the field now back to Cornfoot. We then go further back in our field to Kristen Vermeulen, who's got through the field now. And Vermeulen out and trying to chase down our leaders. The Victoria 31 of Cornfoot goes by on Pearson. So Pearson's lost some ground here. And he's playing catch-up now, and he's back in third. He's right up against the fence off turn 4. Here's Pearson, so hanging it all out. We've got Vermeulen back in fourth. Then we go back to the 0 car of Danny Amato. Will Lamb up the inside. The Victoria 17 of Will Lamb looking to put a pass down on Amato. Pearson coming back on the inside of Cornfoot down the front straight. 5 laps remain here for Brendan Hucker, who's now got a massive lead in the Victoria 23. So Hucker leads the way here over Cornfoot. We then go further back to Pearson in the Victoria 10. Pearson now trying to pour the pressure on the back of Cornfoot. Further back to Vermeulen. Vermeulen closing in on this second and third battle back there. Lamb's got through on Amato, and we've got the AX21 of Chevy Edwards coming through. So So Edwards looking now to try and put a pass down on Lamb on the inside off turn 4, and Edwards works his way through the field up to 5th. Out in front though, Brendan Harker comes around. There'll be 2 laps remaining as he goes on by this time round in the Victoria 23. Pearson goes on by on Cornfoot, so Pearson redresses that issue in the Victoria 10, and he moves his way back to 2nd. So Pearson will come down. Big leader though, Brendan Harker. 1 lap remains for Brendan Harker in the Victoria 23. Cornfoot trying to fight back on Pearson back there, but Pearson looks like he's got his measure now. As we see Harker come down off turn 4, and the checkers will drop for Brendan Harker in the Victoria 23. Cameron Pearson will run 2nd there in the Victoria 10 ahead of Cornfoot in the Victoria 31. Vermeulen will finish back in 4th. Looking to outgun Chevy Edwards off that front row in Heat 3 of our late models. Last chance to bank points for the late models. And the green flag about to drop. And off they go down into turns 1 and 2. Vermeulen on the inside, on the outside we've got Edwards. Amato back there with Verhoeven. We see Mick Nicola now working his way through the field in the Victoria 3 car. Steve Bourne back behind him, and further back to Watson. Further back there with Edwards and Smith and Lamb at the tail. Up in front, it's Chevy Edwards in the Alexander 21 leading the way. Leads the way here out over Danny Amato, who's up the inside on Vermeulen now. So Amato moves his way to 2nd. We now see Mick Nicola go to work on the inside of Vermeulen down the back straight. Vaughan back behind them. Vaughan pokes his nose up the inside on Nicola. We then go back to Verhoeven, who's looking up the inside of Vaughan. Out in front, Edwards all alone out in front. We've got a cut down right rear by the look of it there on the Queensland 9 of Watson, who pulls infield. Up in front, Chevy Edwards leading the way here in the 21. Great lead here over Danny Amato in the 0. 6 laps, there'll be 5 when Chevy comes around this time round and lays another one down over Amato. We then go back to Vermeulen, who's holding that 3rd. Now going to come under some Nicola pressure. Oh, Vaughan goes up the inside down through turns 1 and 2, and Steve Vaughan works up now to put some pressure on Vermeulen. Vaughan up the inside, can't do the work this time round. Out in front, Chevy Edwards goes down past the Southwest Conveyancing Grandstand and down through turn 4 with 3 laps remaining here for Chevy Edwards. Amato sits back in 2nd in the Victoria 0. Further back to Kristen Vermeulen back there in the 12. Nicola around the outside of Vaughan, and Vaughan up the inside. She is willing out there for 3rd, 4th and 5th. Nicola has a look up the inside on Vermeulen. Edwards goes down the back straight. He'll come around and gather up the white flag this time round. So Chevy Edwards on his last circulation. Amato sits in 2nd. Nicola's through into 3rd. Vaughan back in 4th. We then go back to Vermeulen. Nicola up the inside off turn 2, if you don't mind, and he goes on by Amato, but your race winner, Chevy Edwards in the 21, will take it from Mick Nicola. Vaughan gets up the inside, but Amato will hold on there in the Victoria 0 from Steve Vaughan. We then go back to Kristen Vermeulen, Will Lamb, Edwards, Fiona Verhoeven, then we go back through the field, but fantastic drive there.
And it's while we race him. Looks good on paper until now. Let's go green.
Green flag about to drop. I'm watching for Steve Vaughan back in the field in this one. The green flag about to drop. And Harker gets the best at the start, does he? Just around the outside. Pearson fights back on the inside now. Holds Harker out to the charge. Mick Nicola sits back in 3rd. We then go back to Edwards, sitting back in 4th, further back in our field now to the 31 of Cornfoot, Vaughan, Smith, Belt, Vermeulen. Back toward the tail of the field there with Edwards, Lamb, Watson and Verhoeven. Up in front, your race leader, leading the way, Cam Pearson. Puts another lap down, so we've got 18 on the board here for Cam Pearson. Circulating nicely. Just gets caught up there, as I say that, on turn 2. Caught the curb off turn 2 and just slowed him up a little bit. He races off turn 4 nicely now though. The Victoria 3 of Mick Nicola out and trying to chase. Brendan Hucker sits back in third. Back in fourth we go further back to Edwards. Cornfoot, Vaughan, Vermeulen. Vermeulen a fair way back now. So Vermeulen back there with Edwards and Smith. Belk a long way back in the field with Amato further back too. Will Lamb, and back towards the tail we've got Watson and Verhoeven. Up in front, your race leader Cam Pearson off turn 4. Turning some really good laps, 15. He's done 5, 15 to go for Cam Pearson in the Victoria 10. Looking strong out in front, Mick Nicola throwing everything at it but not making a lot of ground on the race leader in the Victoria 3. We then go further back in our field to Hucker now, who sits back in third. Further back to Edwards in the 21 car. So some gaps opening up in our field. Steve Vaughan just has a little bit of a problem off turn 2. Well, he's sitting behind the 31 of Cornfoot. That's cost him a little bit of ground. Up in front, Cam Pearson. Wide open off turn 2. Down through turns 3 and 4, and Cam Pearson looking really strong out in front. He'll come across with 12 laps remaining. Mick Nicola sitting in second. Not making a lot of impression on the leader. Hucker back in third in the 23. Further back to Edwards, and then we go back to Cornfoot. Vaughan, Edwards, Smith, Vermeulen, Belt, Lamb, Watson and Verhoeven. Up in front, your race leader. Doing a fantastic job. About to put a lap down now on Fiona Verhoeven in the South Australia 8 car. Will Lamb back in the field there, fighting it out with Vermeulen. Up in front, your race leader, Cam Pearson. We've got some trouble down there in the middle of turns. Unfortunate for him, but green flag goes up, 11 laps to go. And Pearson gets his foot on it, nice and early off turn 4. Nicola tries to go out after him. We've got Hucker back in third. Further back to Chevy Edwards, who sits back in fourth. Further back to Cornfoot. We then go back to Edwards, who sits back there with Smith, Vermeulen, Lamb. Up in front, Pearson leads the way, 10 laps. He'll have 9 when he goes by this time round. And starting to build himself a lead once again here is Cam Pearson, as he just starts to pull away again from the Super Sedan legend Mick Nicola. We've got Edwards up the inside now back there on Hucker. Hucker trying to fight back around the outside. Edwards on the inside. Hucker stout and strong around the outside, but Edwards gets the job done. Cornfoot now has a good look up the inside. And we do now see the Tasmania 6 of Smith head infield. So he possibly sustained some damage out of that as well. Cam Pearson and Nicola. Nicola takes the lead off turn 2. Pearson back to second now in the Victoria 10. Further back we go to Edwards. Pearson off turn 4. Nicola looks like he's actually pulling away now. Down through turns 1 and 2. And Nicola, maybe Pearson's got some issues. I reckon he's got some issues handling the car down through turns 3 and 4. As we see Nicola off turn 4, he'll come across with 5 laps remaining. Good time to hit the lead. Cornfoot, Hucker's dropped back to 5th now. So we've got Chevy Edwards back there in 3rd with Cornfoot behind for company. We then go back to Edwards, further back to Amato. But up in front, Mick Nicola leads the way here. Down through turns 1 and 2 once again. And Nicola down the back straight past the Southwest Conveyancing Grandstand. Down through turns 3 and 4. We'll have 3 laps remaining this time round. He's got a good buffer now over Cam Pearson back there in the Victoria 10. Further back to the Alexander 21 of Edwards. Edwards sits back in 3rd. And then we further go back now to the Victoria 31 of Cornfoot. So Cornfoot now back in 4th. And a big gap opening up back to 5th, which is Brendan Hucker. Up in front, your race leader, Nicola, heads down the back straight. He'll come around and gather up the white flag this time around. He'll take it with 1 lap to go from Pearson. Pearson sitting back in 2nd. Don't know that he can make an impression from there. He's a fair way back now. Chevy Edwards back in 3rd and further back to Cornfoot and Hucker. Off turn 4 comes Mick Nicola, and he'll take the checker and he'll take the win in the A-main for the late models tonight ahead of Pearson. Chevy Edwards will get home for 3rd. From Cornfoot, Hucker, Edwards, Vermeulen. Verhoeven back in 8th from Watson. And that was the tail of the tape with the Tasmania 6 of Smith, Vaughan, Belk, Lamb, all northern finishes in that one. Fantastic drive there from Mick Nicola, and he takes it. Fair to say it looked unlikely. At that restart, looked unlikely, but he takes it.
He just made every post to win it, didn't he? Just put the power to the ground and made it count. Edged his way clear. Great drive.